Welcome back to the Week 3 preview here at Trippy Commentaries. Let's go ahead and start off with the Indianapolis Colts traveling to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm RJ, joined up by Mike and K-Mac. Now, Kyle, Indianapolis all of a sudden is 0-2. This is a must-win game at Jacksonville.
And they couldn't ask for a better matchup, in my opinion. I think they're going to easily beat Jacksonville here. I'm going to take them to cover the spread. I think this is the week we're going to see Indy's offense kind of come around for a whole game. Probably start off playing pretty good against Jacksonville. Jacksonville just doesn't have anything for me right now. They might be one of the worst teams in the league. Maybe it's kind of a Florida rivalry there. Maybe them or the Bucs. I'm not really sure. Both teams are not playing very good as of last week, and I just don't see them pulling off a victory.
Not at all. One thing that is really standing out for me here with the Jacksonville Jaguars is their prize free agent acquisition, Toby Gerhart, has been pathetic so far. That was one thing they were looking to get going, was that running game, because you have those young wide receivers. You need a solid running game to free up those guys. Doesn't look like they're going to get it. And because of that, of course, Philadelphia used their running game to great success against the Colts to get that victory. I don't see the Jacksonville Jaguars being able to do the same thing. Thus, the Colts travel to Jacksonville and get the victory. Mike, what do you think?
I've got to go with Indianapolis here.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, Jacksonville is just an incomplete team right now. And Andrew Luck, he's looking great out there.
Only a 7-point cushion here for Indy, so that's pretty low. I think they should be able to beat them by more than that. And if they don't, could be code blue there in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens, but look for them to get their first victory of the season. Oakland is going to New England. This is set up very nicely for a New England victory to put them at 2-1. They are favored by 14.5 points. I think Derek Carr is pretty much going into a situation that he cannot win.
No, and I think New England's defense is going to shut Oakland's offense down. And, Oakland's defense has some playmakers on it, but I just don't see him stopping New England in this new rushing attack that they have. We saw Shane Vereen in the first week put up good numbers, and we saw Ridley last week have a big week. So anytime New England can run the ball, we always know they can throw the ball. So that's when they're complete, and that's when they're pretty hard to beat.
Yeah, this feels like a pretty big Stephen Ridley game here. The funny thing about him is he actually hasn't fumbled in a long time now. So perhaps if he ends up holding on to the ball, that transforms him back into a legit back. We don't forget about him in his LSU days. He was a great running back. The fumbling is what derailed his career there in New England for a while. Now it's been a while, so that would make him a huge weapon because, let's face it, their passing game hasn't been as impressive as we thought it would be. So
I just think
the running game will pull it up.
Week 1, they seemed like they were a little bit off. Last week, they played so good, they didn't really have to force the ball downfield. So
that's for sure. They won by quite a bit.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick New England. I think it's impossible to pick Oakland here. Mike, are you going to be the one to do it?
Now, it's a 14.5 point favorites here for New England, so
that is tempting with the points.
I mean, that's
a lot of points.
Quite a bit of points.
I mean, maybe with the points, but as far as choosing a team to win here, I've got to go with New England. I mean,
absolutely.
They're just going to beat Oakland.
They're set up so nicely here, man. I mean, come on, what the hell? It seems like our teams that we root for, I mean, I like the Patriots as well, but, right when you need a big win, when you have to have that must-win game, you get the Saints on the road, something like that. And, of course, the Patriots. This is a junction where they definitely need a win to get up in that division. They get Oakland at home.
I feel them and Indianapolis got a present, too. They're like, we need a win. Here's Jacksonville.
The next matchup's pretty interesting, K-Mac. You have San Francisco traveling to Arizona.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen here as far as Carson Palmer's concerned?
I don't know, man. If Carson Palmer plays, at Arizona, I could see Arizona upsetting San Francisco
easily.
But if Carson Palmer's not playing, I don't know if I can see that happening. Not to say take anything away from San Francisco, because I thought they've played great so far this season. Kaepernick looks good. I think he's going to continue. And something about Arizona. And then I always like taking the home teams. San Francisco's only favored by 3 points. So I think this game's going to be close, but I think Arizona pulls it off.
Yeah, I got to pick San Francisco here. I don't think Carson Palmer's going to play. Could be wrong about that, of course.
Yeah, that's game time. If Carson Palmer doesn't play in his game, obviously I'm not going to go with Arizona.
Yeah, I hear you there. But I'm definitely going to take San Francisco. I felt like they've been underrated for a while now. Going into the season, a lot of people were bringing up the negative aspects of the team, which pretty easy to bring up, especially this season. But there's still a lot of positive things here. I know they kind of blew a game last week against Chicago. It was a lot like the Philly-Indy game where nobody really saw it coming. But I think San Francisco needed that game to wake up. Their defense is too good. And against Arizona, I think even with Carson Palmer, that defense should be able to stiffen. And I like them to take out Arizona in a tough place to play. But that'll be a big win for them, as they're going to have to keep up with the Seattle Seahawks. Possibly even go ahead of them if Seattle loses to Denver, the next game we're going to preview. Mike, San Francisco, do you take them traveling to Arizona?
Yeah, I think I've got to go with San Fran here. Kaepernick looks good out there, and Frank Gore, looking good as well. And you've got Hyde in there as a good third down back.
Yes.
I like
we'll see if Kaepernick bounces back, because I mean he did throw the 3 picks last week. So
yeah,
terrible.
But that's not what you want to see. But we all know Kaepernick is a pretty good quarterback. He's going to turn it around.
Yeah, I think he's going to turn it around, and
Arizona's got some playmakers, man.
One thing that's worrying me about San Fran, though, is possibly not having Vernon Davis out there. That could create a lot of trouble for Crabtree, and that might create issues.
I'm not too worried about it. I think they can use Anquan Bolden in that Vernon Davis role. Bolden also a big guy, and even though he's a wide receiver, let's face it, Vernon Davis basically plays like a wide receiver on many of his plays, so that should work out nice. San Francisco's deep. They got Stevie Johnson in there. It seems like they got backups at every position with the exception of maybe cornerback.
Yeah.
I'm picking San Francisco. K-Max holding steady with Arizona, and Mike, you're taking, of course, San Francisco as well. Denver at Seattle. This is it, guys. This is the Super Bowl rematch. What are you looking at here, Kyle? Is there any way that this matchup goes differently than we saw in the Super Bowl?
Well, I mean, if Denver looks at the tape and watches what San Diego did last week, I think they kind of revealed a soft spot in that Seattle secondary, Seattle defense in general. Throw it to your tight end. And Denver's got a pretty damn good one. So we've already seen what he can do on the field this year. So
3 touchdowns by Antonio Gates. You think Julius Thomas is going to emulate that?
Maybe not 3 touchdowns, but it's definitely something they're going to look at and say, look, we have an area we can attack them, because last year in the Super Bowl, they couldn't attack them at all. Like, it was pathetic. I've never seen the Broncos offense look so terrible in a game as that Super Bowl game. So
they were out of whack.
It was horrible. So I mean, they've got to learn from that. Obviously, maybe that's the one weakness, because that San Diego did it. I mean, Keenan Allen didn't really have a big game. I mean, none of the receivers really had a big game that you can say, wow, they torched Seattle's defense. No, it was the tight end pretty much and just dumping the ball off. Wood had a couple catches. So look for Denver to kind of use the same thing and see what happens. I mean, this is the hardest one for me, but the fact that it's in Seattle, I got to have Seattle probably going to win it by a touchdown, maybe 10 points.
I'm going to take Denver here. I think this is their redemption game. It's really one of those 50-50 games. Half of me thinks that they're going to go in and get their ass kicked all over again, but another half thinks that they're going to wake up for this game and pull it off. A win would really mean a lot for them in this season. It would kind of give them a lot of confidence that they are indeed the best team. As we thought that most of last season, but of course when you get whooped in the Super Bowl, you kind of question how good they really were. The one thing that's a huge difference for them is their defense. I think is much better this year, and I think that's going to stand out in this game because it's going to probably be low scoring. I think both defenses are going to hold their own. Of course, Seattle's didn't look the best last week against San Diego. Watching that game, San Diego constantly was driving on them. That's interesting. That cannot happen, of course, against Denver, who is the best offense.
That could have helped Seattle out, though. Like they might have needed that. Like, oh wait, we need to play a little better here, because Denver's gonna, they're gonna exploit any little weakness we have in our defense.
Oh yeah. Denver's certainly got a reason to come out here on fire. and they're going to want to win as bad as you could possibly get it. It is probably the hardest place to play in the entire league. Yeah. Nonetheless, I'm picking Denver. Mike, I'm interested to hear who you're going to pick.
I have to go with Denver out of this matchup.
Really? Wow,
yes.
On the road. Yes. We should mention that Seattle is favored by a whole 5 points here.
Yeah, I like the additions in the offseason of Sanders. I'm not sure if Welker is going to play this week. I heard that he
think he will.
I think he will.
Definitely allowed to play. It's all a matter of conditioning.
That's definitely going to be an interesting factor in that game. But yeah, I think the Chargers exploited some weaknesses in that defense, the Seahawks, and I do think the Broncos and Peyton Manning are going to look for ways to exploit that, and they're going to pull off the win.
Yeah, it's one thing where you see a guy the week prior do good, like of course in this case you have Antonio Gates. A lot of teams see someone like that do good and they're like, man, we got to do something like that. Many teams, it's hard to pull off an Antonio Gates like performance. The Broncos will have no problem at all doing that same exact game plan and look for it to work. Julius Thomas, if they let him get the ball, the Broncos are going to pass it to him. Well, they've proven that in the past.
And the thing now is, are you going to put Earl Thomas to cover him? Are you going to have Cam Chancellor cover him? Are you going to double him? Because you really can't, because you got these other receivers for the Broncos that you can't. You can't have a linebacker on any of those receivers. So if maybe Bobby Wagner can maybe lock him down a little bit. Obviously, they didn't do it last week against Gates, so I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Whatever they did in the Super Bowl, probably just repeat that game plan all over again.
In Seattle, man, it's hard to pick Seattle to lose in Seattle. I mean, it's really so loud there. Hey, we know the Broncos like to make a lot of changes at the line, so if it's loud enough, man, could cause some problems for Denver.
That's for sure. That's something they didn't really have to deal with as much in the Super Bowl, although a lot of the reports were that it was pretty loud there as well, of course, leading to that safety. So I'm picking Denver. Mike's picking Denver. Kyle, you're picking Seattle at home.
Yep.
Really tough to go against that. Kansas City's traveling to Miami. Not the most interesting game of the weekend because Jamal Charles is out. No Sean Moreno's out. Both teams are without their starting running backs here. I think Miami has a pretty nice setup here for victory. That said, I'm picking KC.
You're going to pick KC?
Absolutely. Okay. I think they're going to be able to run it on Miami. I think Niall Davis, is a fresh guy. He's probably going to be a big reason for the Chiefs winning on the road. Miami doesn't impress me. They fell on their face last week. And Kansas City, I think they're better than what they've shown so far. Perhaps the loss of Jamal Charles will galvanize the team. As crazy as it sounds, they do have a pretty decent backup.
It's possible, man, but I got to go Miami in this. Kansas City, their players are pretty much dropping like flies, especially on the defense. They got a lot of guys that are pretty beat up. So I think Miami's offense, look, if they can kind of return to that form how they were in week one, if we can see that again, obviously they're not going to have Moreno. We'll see what Miller can do. I mean, they weren't really planning on having Moreno for the beginning of the season, back in training camp. So, Miller was getting all the touches. So we'll see what they can do with Miller. I got to take Miami to beat Kansas City because I thought they were going to be a little better than they were in the beginning of the season, and I'm just looking at them now, and I'm not really liking what I'm seeing from the defense, which I thought was going to be somewhat comparable to how it was last year.
This really is a battle of two probably below average teams. Miami had some hope here, but they've been stricken with injuries as well, K-Mac. Their linebacking core is perhaps the worst in the entire league. I'm picking KC. Mike, what are you going to do?
I think I'm going to go with Miami here. I do think it's going to be a close one, but I'm going to take Miami in this one. A little bit of a gamble. I do like Niles Davis there covering for Charles. But going to go with the Dolphins.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I'm the only person who's going to pick Kansas City here, even though probably both these teams really don't deserve to win right now with two of their best players on the shelf. Pittsburgh traveling to Carolina, Sunday Night Football. This is a pretty huge game. If it wasn't for a couple other matches pretty much overshadowing this one, this would get a lot of hype. We have Roethlisberger. He's thrown it to Emmanuel Sanders in that picture. He doesn't have Sanders anymore. Perhaps that's a reason why he's not doing quite as well. I think his other wide receivers will eventually adapt. Le'Veon Bell has been pretty dynamite Carolina's defense is not going to allow them to do much, though.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, we'll see if Le'Veon Bell is that good right now, because this is probably the #1 rush defense in the league. You can argue maybe with the Jets, but I feel Carolina's rush defense is going to be better all season long. Pittsburgh just really hasn't shown anything to me yet. I mean, I was kind of expecting them to kind of blossom this year on offense, and I'm still kind of let down a little bit by Pittsburgh. I think they're not giving Pittsburgh enough. 3.5 points is the Carolina's favored by 3.5 points. I think Carolina is going to do exactly what they did to Detroit last week. They're going to do the same thing to Pittsburgh. They're going to win by probably about 2 scores.
Here's the thing about of course, with this matchup here, you have Pittsburgh, who has Antonio Brown, and he can basically win any matchup single-handedly in a defensive matchup such as this. Carolina, we love their defense, but are they going to be able to hold Antonio Brown down? That's the question. Because for as good as Carolina's defense is, and I'm very confident that they're going to, of course, be very good.
Do you remember who they shut down last week? Mr. Calvin Johnson?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big deal for sure.
So.
Yeah, I'm going to pick, definitely going to pick Carolina at home in this matchup. Who are you picking?
Yeah, Carolina, definitely.
Mike, what are you doing?
Going with Carolina here.
Chicago traveling to the Jets. Monday Night Football. Really not the most impressive of Monday night matchups here, but I think it definitely bodes well for Chicago. They should be favored here, even though they're not. The Jets have a 3-point cush here as far as Vegas is concerned. I'm picking Chicago to win on the road and get another crazy win.
I'm going with Chicago too. I like what I saw last week on the offense. I think it's enough to get past the Jets, because Forte really didn't do much last week. So
not at all.
The Jets are great at stopping the run, but I don't think Chicago's going to need it.
I'm going to go with the Jets here.
Really? Taking the Jets at home?
Yeah.
Geno Smith, better than people give him credit for.
Yeah, and I see that running game, dual-headed backs there,
Ugh, I don't know about that.
Yes.
Chris Ivory, scary.
More
Chris Johnson, not so much.
Fantasy hope over there,
yes.
Mike. Yeah.
For Chris Ivory. Not so much Chris Johnson. Yeah. Thank you guys for joining us here. Make sure to join us every week for our week previews. Next week will be week 4, the actual first week of bye weeks. So we won't have as many games. We can focus on a couple in a little bit more in-depth for you guys.
Yeah, definitely.
Make sure to join us every week. We will go, of course, in-depth with all of the matchups. AP, man, we're speechless here, guys. Hopefully he can get back on the field, but he's got way more important matters to attend to right now. I'm RJ for Mike and K-Mac. Peace out. Good luck this week in fantasy. Have fun watching the games. And more importantly, stay trippy.